Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. What could be avoided during the Cold War might become a reality soon, and that is that once again German tanks could fight against Russian tanks in Ukraine. And we're also talking about historic tanks here. So as I said, Germany was recently getting under more and more pressure to send also so-called heavy weapons and heavy machinery to Ukraine. And not only what we did so far, these RPGs and Stingers and these manpads and such things, so more or less defensive weapons. Now we're talking about heavy machinery, tanks, armored vehicles, and also artillery. Germany was hesitant about these shipments because they do not want to become a direct actor or an active party in this conflict in Eastern Europe. However, now there was a briefing in Ramstein, and I think our American overlords told the German politicians what they want to see, and the Germans just swiftly complied, as they always do. And the result is now twofold, according to my knowledge, what I have read today so far at least, is that first there is something that we call a Ringtausch, which is a curious description for what we actually have. It is not a ring exchange like the German name would suggest. It is much more linear, really. It's maybe a degenerate circle when you look at it from the side or something. Anyways, and the other thing is that German weapons manufacturers such as Krauss-Maffei-Wegmann and Rheinmetall, they have sent applications to the German government in order to send their old and used tank stocks as soon as possible to Ukraine, and also to supply tools and training for Ukrainian forces in Germany. In today's video, I want to look at the different systems that Germany and German corporations are willing to send, and then give you my opinion on the sensibility or usefulness of these systems. But before we get into that, a big shout out to all my supporters and my subscribers. Share this video if you find this information useful. Check me out on other social media platforms as well. And if you like to, you can support my channel via Patreon or Subscribestar. Alright, let's talk about this Ringtausch first. The idea was that Slovenia would give its old Soviet-era systems to Ukraine, and then Germany would fill the gap in Slovenia with old German systems. This way, Germany wouldn't directly be delivering systems to Ukraine, but Slovenia would send their stuff. Just on a little side note, in Slovenia, just a very green, progressive new party was voted into power. Maybe I will talk about that soon if I find the time. So I really wonder why this is called Ringtausch, because nothing is coming back. We're just sending stuff in one direction, so it's a line and not a ring. But well, maybe I don't see some little detail here. What do you think about that name? But more important, here are now some offers from Germany, and that is that the weapons manufacturer KMW, Krauss-Maffei-Wegmann, they suggested to send a bunch of Gepard, so Cheetah, anti-aircraft tanks to Ukraine. This is a weapon systems from the 1970s, and it is based, I think, on a Leopard, so Leopard 1 chassis or base, and the turret contains then now 2 radar systems and a 35mm twin gun, a machine cannon. So this is a anti-aircraft, so flak tank, and it can be used against low-flying aircraft, helicopters and drones, for example. It is fairly accurate when stationary. It can also operate the cannons while moving. That is at the expense of the accuracy, of course, and it can also distinguish between, in principle at least, friendly and enemy objects, and you can also use it against targets on the ground. These cannons are, firing at a rate of 1,000 or over 1,000 rounds per minute, so it is a pretty strong weapon system. So KMW could send 50 used models to Ukraine, and I think that they can use them if they can get trained on this weapon system fast. They can use that very well against Russian forces. So another company that offered to ship equipment is Rheinmetall, and they have offered to send, and this is no joke, 88 old used Leopard 1 tanks to Ukraine. That is a battle tank that is from the 1960s. It was the first main battle tank or battle tank that was developed in Germany after World War II, and for a very long time it has been the main tank of the Bundeswehr, and it is used by a lot of other nations. It is still in use in some countries. At its time, I think during the Cold War, it was a very good battle tank, and it was used by the German Bundeswehr until 2003, I think. It was replaced by the newer model Leopard 2. So as I said, these are used models, and the 88 models come at a cost of 115 million euro. That is a bargain price for 88 German tanks. Of course, Rheinmetall also offers a lot of replacement parts and tools, and also training in Germany for Ukrainian tank crews. Rheinmetall also said that they could send an additional 100 Marder tanks, and that is the main tank of German grenadiers. So that is an infantry tank, an armored vehicle. It is operated by 3 crewmen and has space for 6 more infantrymen in the back who can fight to a certain degree from the tank, and also of course exit the tank swiftly and then fight in the open field. So the only thing that is missing now is artillery, and the Netherlands offered to offer a bunch of German produced Panzerhaubitze 2000 artillery systems. That system comes from a time where everything that was modern was called 2000. It is still fairly good, I think. It is an armored mobile artillery system that has a range of 40 kilometers. So as you can see, what Germany offers to send, or what Germany agrees to, what the German industry is allowed to export or send, well, it is not really exported. It is more or less given to Ukraine. It's not like the Ukrainians pay for it, right? But anyway, this equipment covers a whole range of things: air defense, infantry, vehicles, battle tanks, and also artillery. Now, for a long time, many people said that we cannot just give this stuff to Ukraine out of the simple reason that their soldiers aren't trained on these systems, and training for some of these systems, at least, which are rather complicated. The Gepard anti-aircraft tank, for example, is said to be a rather complicated system, and if you really want to use it to the top of its capabilities, you need a well-trained crew that was really trained on this system very intensively. But I also think the Panzerhaubitze 2000 is not something that you can master after 1 week of focused training. The Leopard 1 and the Marder, I think, are not that complicated. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I think compared to the other 2 systems, especially if you are already familiar with vehicles such as that, if you have a trained tank crew already that knows the Soviet era systems very well, I think you could maybe get training on that in Germany in a reasonable time span. However, as I said, Panzerhaubitze 2000 and Gepard, that is more complicated, I think. And of course, we know that the Russians threatened everybody who would interfere here, and I think Germany is now stepping further over this red line. I mean, we already send weapons, but now we are sending really heavy weapons, and we offer now to train Ukrainian crews in Germany. So are we dancing on the red line, or have we already jumped over the red line? I don't know. That is in that sense for the Russians to decide how they interpret what we are doing right now. But it is fairly obvious to everyone that Germany, just like a lot of other European nations, are not neutral parties anymore. And we are not just sending financial or humanitarian help, but this makes us really an active party in this conflict. There was an interesting story about the Marder because the ammunition for that, I think, is produced in Switzerland, and Switzerland said that they wouldn't allow any exporting of this ammunition for the Marder. So the Bundeswehr now has to check if they still have some ammunition for that, or that we get some other source than the Swiss produced material. But that just goes to show even Switzerland isn't neutral, but they see this as one step too far, and Germany at the moment doesn't anymore. So of course, this is good news for the German defense industry. It is not good news for the German taxpayer. And the CDU, the centrist or pseudo-conservative opposition in parliament, they already said that Germany should not just send old used things or allow our industry to send used equipment or equipment they have in store, but stuff, equipment, machines that are on active duty with the Bundeswehr should also be sent there. And that is just crazy, because we just said that we would invest 100 billion euros into building up the capabilities of the Bundeswehr so that we can protect our allies in NATO better, and now we want to send all that stuff to Ukraine. So that reminds me a little bit of that time when we sent all our protective masks and gloves and all these things to China, and then when we needed it ourselves, we had to import it for a really large price from China when we first gave them our equipment for free. Anyway, so that is my take on the whole situation. I think in principle these weapon systems are fairly useful for Ukraine in their current situation, in their fight against Russia. But with some systems, one has to take care that the crew is sufficiently trained and that these systems will not become just sitting ducks and just target practice for experienced Russian veterans. Because even the best weapon system is not useful if the crew is not trained, and that is even more the case for more complicated and modern weapon systems. Let me know your thoughts on the topic in the comments down below. Take care, Servus, Kameraden.